1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters go.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Yeah, that's me gassing on the intro, man. Like I keep telling y'all, the flow is nothing like Curtis Blow. If you want to check out more of my music, go to my YouTube playlist, scroll down to gas stations, and you will find a lot of my music there. Now let's hop right up into this video. So yeah, you see the topic. Is it okay to be black and gay in the California prisons? And I've said this many times before, and I'm sure I'll continue to say it again anytime that it applies, right? It all depends on what prison you go to and who is there at the time, due to the fact that the blacks, we don't fall under one certain structure, right? There is no quote unquote shot caller at any prison that you go to for the blacks. Now, you may have dudes in individual cars, regardless of where those cars are from, whether they are Crip cars, blood cars, gangster cars, neighborhood cars, you know, up north cars or whatever, right? You will rarely find shot callers in people's cars. You will find people who are experienced in doing time and their word is respected, and so they have a more vocal say than others, and their opinion sometimes is more respected than others, right? And in some certain situations with blacks, you may find shot callers, but that's extremely rare. For the most part, let me say this, right? No, it is not okay to be black and gay in California prisons, right? You cannot be an active participating Crip or Blood and have that be known to your homeboys and be allowed to function as a Crip or a Blood if it's known that you are gay. But in my experience of doing time, have I seen blacks who come to jail and openly admit to being homosexual? Have I seen them ran off the yard as you may see with some other organizations or collectives? For the most part, to be honest, the answer is no. I seen it at one particular prison, which may be shocking to you guys, and I'll get to that a little later on. But for the most part, no, I haven't seen the person who admits to being gay ran off the yard, right? So when I first got to prison, I believe I seen an individual who was a homosexual, who admitted to being a homosexual the first time in the Riverside County Jail. And then once again, I didn't see one again until years later, actually till I got to a level 3 Ironwood on B Yard. You know, now in some instances, and like I say, keep in mind, there are 32 men's prisons in California, or somewhere around there, maybe even 33. A lot of times, each one of these prisons will have 4 different yards on it with maybe 800 to 1,000 people on the yard. So, of course, I can't be in every prison on every yard at every time. So I'm only speaking to my experience and what I saw. But yeah, there have been times, you know, when you may hear of homosexuals being ran off yards, and that is because you have people who don't want to be in the cell with them. They have to be in the cell with somebody, right? They have to be in the cell with somebody. And if individuals are refusing to accept them as a cellie, then eventually they're moved and placed somewhere else. But once again, when I got to Ironwood, I don't know how long I was there. There definitely was a couple on the yard, you know, who was full-fledged, open homosexuals, and they was there, and they was in the cell with people. Right now, those dudes who they were in the cell with, they were not gang members, right? And they definitely was, well, you know, dudes still talked to him, dudes still spoke to him, you know, but they weren't gang members, right? And the problem that a lot of people have besides the obvious with homosexuals is they also believe that they are, for lack of a better term, they're janky, and they're points of trouble, you know, because of course in an environment when you have people who are deprived of having sex, you're always going to have people interested in having sex, even if having sex means having sex with someone of the same sex. I think for individuals who have never been to jail, and especially women, too many of you assume that people are in jail having same-sex relationships due to the fact that they are in jail and they are deprived of sex, which is far, far from true. You know, if I had to estimate, and this is just my estimation, I would say possibly maybe 10%, 10-15%, you know, are possibly in prison, you know, participating in homosexual activities, right? Let's get to the question of why is that behavior seemingly allowed or permitted by the blacks more than it is allowed or permitted at all by other organizations, by other races? And my honest answer to that is, you know, I have no idea. I do not know. That is something that was going on long before I hit prison, and I do not know why something like a situation like that was permitted by some blacks, right? Now it's not all blacks, and like I said, you have some who strongly disagree with that. You know, case in point, I remember when I was in Ironwood on B Yard. Now the Bloods, it came to their attention that a dude who was a Blood was in a relationship with a homosexual in the yard. When they found out, they immediately busted him up, put hands on the dude, and told him, hey man, you're not no blood. Don't let the word blood come about your mouth. You know, they didn't stab him. They didn't run him off the yard, or at least they whooped on him. And they just told him, hey man, don't let blood come out your mouth. You know, they didn't attack the homosexual or whatever, you know, like maybe some organizations or races may do. You know, their point of anger was just with the dude claiming to be a Blood, because, you know, their ideology was, and their thinking was, you are not going to be putting a bad name on a Blood or on the Bloods, you know, being involved in that type of activity. Because I think that a lot of people try to paint the blacks with a broad brush and say that the blacks allow that. But once again, you know, a lot of times it just comes to an individual's choice. I have seen times when homosexuals were ran off the yard at one particular prison. Surprisingly enough, that particular prison was CMC East on A Yard. And CMC for a very long time has had a reputation of a prison that was very easy to do time at, and not a lot of racial politics, right? So you would have some individuals fill out a medical form or medical slip and say that they were having thoughts of killing themselves. So then they would be placed in the hole. Eventually they would talk to a psych, and most likely they would be placed on a certain type of medication where, when taking this medication, they couldn't be in certain prisons that got, I believe, over 80 degrees or 90 degrees or something like that. So a lot of times when individuals went that route, they would eventually be sent to CMC East C Yard. C Yard also had a high concentration of homosexuals. Now, A Yard was considered general population, the main line, right? So I've seen this several times on A Yard. When a person came to A Yard who was openly homosexual, or he was thought to believe he was homosexual, he would be ran off the yard. And probably one of the reasons is because no one wanted to be in a cell with a homosexual, right? And so the cells at CMC are extremely small, and dudes definitely just wasn't going for it. Anyway, once again, you know, keep it at 100 like I always like to do. I was in Ironwood, and we had two separate homies who was involved and engaged openly with homosexuals, right? One was on B Yard and one was on A Yard. And once again, I do not know why. The overall attitude was that it was cool for these dudes to, you know, still be in the collective, even though we wasn't functioning as Crips and Bloods. When I say we, I'm just talking about homies who function with the IE car. Definitely don't get it misconstrued, or don't get the misunderstanding that you didn't have several homies who functioned with the IE car as a collective who was opposed to these homies being allowed to deal with homosexuals and still be part of the car. And once again, I really don't know why that is a situation that is permitted or allowed with some blacks. And I do stress and want to say some blacks, because once again, I think back to a time when I was at CMC. east, I was on A Yard. Now you had some dudes who were from OVG, Original Valley Gangsters. They was on A Yard, they was pushing, they was Crips, they was doing their thing, you know, shout out to them dudes. They happened to find out or hear that one of their homies had pulled up and he was on C Yard. They immediately went over there or got the message to that dude and told that dude, hey, listen, and I don't remember exactly how long it was. It may have been 2 or 3 days, 4 days, but they told that dude, hey, listen, man, you got exactly, and whatever time it was, they told him this amount of time to get your butt up off C Yard, or you no longer a Crip, keep the hood out your mouth, so on and so forth. And in a short matter of time, that dude did whatever he needed to do to get moved to A Yard. And I say that to say that, once again, you do have dudes who are strongly opposed to that type of activity. And these dudes who were from OVG, who was definitely cripping with the business, didn't want their hood or their name being associated with anything negative, such as a person even being on the yard that had a high concentration of homosexuals. So let me reiterate, the homie who they gave this ultimatum to, they didn't suspect this dude of being over there involved in any homosexual activities. They didn't even want him on the yard with a large amount of homosexuals. So, you know, when people try to say that, oh, you know, the blacks, they allow that, they permit that, once again, 100% false. It is just due to the blacks being so splintered, being so fractured. You have different thoughts and different opinions on that, depending on what car you're dealing with, what prison you may be at, so on and so forth, right? And so once again, I definitely will say that you have way more blacks than not who oppose this type of activity, but due to the fact that you are allowed way more individualism when you function as a black than you are in any other race or any other organization, a lot of times we as blacks, we don't try to govern certain individual activities of others, even if we disagree with it. In my experience, more times than not, when I see people oppose this type of situation, they'll oppose the dude who is messing with the full-fledged homosexual, right? That's their opposition will be about the choices that he made, not necessarily the homosexual himself. Now, some people may say, well, hey, Chill, you know, when you first started doing your YouTube page, you told a story about a dude named Derek who got beat up and so on and so forth for being a homosexual. Well, let me just reiterate that. No, Derek didn't get beat up for being a homosexual per se. Derek got beat up because when he was questioned about was he performing homosexual activities, he said, no, they lie, they lie. Now listen, I don't want nobody to laugh. Once again, if you didn't see the story, Derek was deaf. If you've never seen that story, the name of that story is You Might Be Deaf, But We Don't Care. But like I say, I stress the reason Derek was assaulted because when they asked him was he performing in these activities, he said no. Derek wanted to be accepted. Derek was deaf. Derek wanted to be accepted and hang with, you know, the Crips, the Bloods, so on and so forth, even though he didn't gangbang. Derek wanted to fit in. He wanted to smoke weed, smoke cigarettes, drink Pruno, eat out of people's bowls, so on and so forth, without being forthcoming about the activities that he was participating in. Derek wasn't beat up because he got pleasure from placing a penis on his palate. Derek was beat up once again for being dishonest about what he was doing and not giving people to make that choice if they wanted to associate with him in a certain way. You know, of course, now if people know that you're down there and you're doing that certain thing, they're not supposed to let you drink out of their coffee cup. They're not supposed to pass you their cigarette or their joint. And so when it was discovered what he was doing, that's why he got lefts and rights, you know, not because he was a homosexual per se. But anyway, you know, you already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.